She had 40 seconds, she counted them. Afterward, pressing her palms flat on the kitchen counter after she hung up to decide what kind of woman she was going to be. No, whether she would tell him she had known, in the part of herself that was honest, that the truth was always going to arrive. Things like this do not stay buried, they migrate upward patient as geology until they surface. The question was never whether, it was how, and who she was when she did. She called him back. "I need to tell you something," she said. "All of it, and I need you to let me get through the whole thing before you say anything." He was quiet for a long moment, then, "Okay," she told him. She sat down on the kitchen floor, not the chair, the floor, because somehow the floor felt more honest, and she told him everything. Atlanta, 2015, the weekends, the way she had loved Kole with her entire unguarded self, the 3 days of silence, the hospital, the pregnancy, the phone call that broke her in half, Portland, the suitcase, Cherish, and then the rest, the accident she hadn't known about, the amnesia, the man in bed 7 who reminded her of someone and turned out to be his brother. She talked for a long time. Gilbert said nothing. She could hear him breathing on the other end of the line, and she focused on that steady present there while she dismantled the version of events she had been allowing him to live in. When she finished, the silence stretched. "Cherish," he said finally. His voice was strange, very carefully modulated. "Cherish is Kole's daughter." "Yes, and you knew when you came to Atlanta? You knew when you walked into the house?" "I knew in the moment I saw him. No, before. I haven't been to your family house before." "But you didn't tell me." "No." Another silence, longer this time. "Gilbert." She pressed her hand to her sternum where something ached. "I was terrified. I know that is not enough. I know you deserve more than that explanation. But I need you to understand that I am not the same woman who ran from things, or I am trying not to be. And telling you now, even though it costs everything, is me trying to be different." "I need some time," he said. "I know. I am not." He stopped. She heard him gathering himself, heard the quiet discipline of a man who expresses things when he is ready and not before. "I am not saying it is over. I am saying I need to think." "Okay," she said, "take what you need." He hung up. She sat on the kitchen floor for a while longer, then she got up, washed her hands, checked on Cherish, who was asleep with her phone on her chest and her headphones still in, and went to bed. She did not text Kole. She slept badly and dreamed about nothing specific, just a low ambient dread, and woke up at 5 a.m. to the sound of rain and the knowledge that today was going to be a day that determined something. Gilbert came to her apartment that afternoon. He sat at her kitchen table, the same table where she'd graded nursing textbooks, helped Cherish with homework, eaten 1,000 ordinary meals, and looked at her with an expression that she would later struggle to describe to anyone. It wasn't anger, though there was some of that in it. It wasn't hurt, though there was plenty of that too. It was something more fundamental. A man reconsidering the geometry of his life. "Tell me one thing," he said. She waited. "When you look at me, when you chose me over these 2 years, was any of it about him? Was I a replacement? Was I some kind of nicer?" "No." She said it before he'd even finished. "No, I want to be careful here because you deserve precision, not comfort. When I met you, I was not in love with Kole. I had packed him away. What I had been in love with was gone, and what I had built in its place was very solid and very real. You were not a replacement, you were something entirely new." She held his gaze. "Falling in love with you was one of the least complicated things I've ever done. It was the aftermath that got complicated." He considered this, and now, he asked quietly, now that he is back, now that everything is what it is, what do you feel? The question sat between them, taking up all the air. She had been asking herself this for 3 weeks. She had been turning it over in the dark, at work, on the drive home, in the quiet moments when she should have been thinking about something else. She had examined it from every angle, with the particular exhaustive rigor of someone who knows the answer matters. "I feel like I am standing in 2 different timelines simultaneously," she said carefully. "Like I can see both lives. I love you, Gilbert, that is real, and I am not performing it. But I would be C10 lying if I told you that seeing Kole again didn't reopen something I thought was closed," she exhaled. "I've done things out of fear before. I am done with that." He nodded slowly, like he'd known she would say something like this and had been preparing. What are you going to do with that? He asked. That depends, she said, on what you decide. Kole was sitting on her building's front steps when she came home 2 evenings later from a double shift. She stopped on the sidewalk and looked at him. He was wearing a dark jacket against the October cold, his hands between his knees, looking up at her with the expression she remembered now open, transparent, the face that showed everything. I told your brother, she said. Before you ask, he knows everything, Kole exhaled. I know, and we talked for 4 hours, and it was the hardest conversation of my life. He stood up slowly. He is a good man, Anne. I know he is. He loves you. I know that too. The October wind moved between them. Somewhere down the block, someone was burning leaves. I am not here to fight for you, Kole said. I need you to understand that. I am not here to compete with my brother or make this harder than it already is. I am here because he paused and she watched him find the words. I lost 2 years once, just erased, gone. And I know what it is like to wake up and have pieces missing. I know what it is like to look for something you can't find. He looked at Hattie, her directly. I don't want to lose the years I have left being careful about the wrong things. That is a very beautiful way of not saying what you mean, she said. What I mean is that I love you. I never stopped. I understand if that is irrelevant. I understand if you are going to marry Gilbert, and I am going to be your brother-in-law and watch you at Christmas dinners and love cherish the way uncles do. I'll do that. I'll do it without self-pity if it is what you choose. He swallowed, but I needed to say it once out loud clearly so that whatever you decide, you decide it knowing. The street was very quiet. Anne stood on the sidewalk and looked at the first man she had loved and thought about all of it, the pregnancy test. The 9 years, Cherish's small furious face at birth, Portland the nursing degree, the night she said yes to Gilbert in her kitchen while making dinner, all of it lined up in order. All of it real, all of it hers. Go home, Kole, she said finally. He didn't move. And, go home. I am not saying goodbye, I am saying go home, let me think. Give me the space to make a decision that I can live with. She looked at him steadily. Whatever I choose, it is going to be chosen deliberately with my whole self, no, out of guilt or fear or history, she exhaled. I've done things out of fear before. I am done with that. He looked at her for a long time, then he nodded once and walked past her down the sidewalk. She stood there until she couldn't hear his footsteps anymore. A month later, in a small coffee shop, 3 blocks from the hospital, she sat across from Gilbert. He looked well, a little thinner maybe, in the way that difficult months sometimes pare people down, but present, grounded in himself. I've been doing a lot of thinking, she said. I know, he smiled, small and careful. Me too. I want to tell you something, and I want you to hear it correctly. She folded her hands on the table. My feelings for Kole are real. I am not going to pretend they're not. Because you deserve better than that pretending, but feelings are not decisions. She paused. I choose you, Gilbert, no, because it is safe, not because it is easier, not because of history or obligation. I choose you because of who you are in a room, because of the way you treated Cherish before you even knew she was his. Because you sat in your car for an hour processing the worst conversation of your car life and then came to my table and asked me what I was feeling before you told me what you were feeling. Her voice was very even. I choose you because you are the life I want to be living. Gilbert was quiet for a long time. Then he reached across the table and covered her hands with his. There is something I need to tell you too, he said, about what Kole said to me on that phone call. What he said was he stopped, pressed his lips together. He told me to choose you well, he said. If an invitation I was going to have you, I had to deserve you every day. No, just in the easy days. He shook his head slowly. He told me that his own brother, the man who loves you, told me to love you better. He looked up at her. That is the kind of man he is. She felt something open in her chest. No, break open. I know, she whispered. So do I, said Gilbert. So I am going to try. 6 months after the wedding, Cherish called Kole for the first time on her own initiative. No, because Anne asked her to know, because of any arrangement, just because she felt like it. They talked for 3 hours. Anne knew because Cherish came to her afterward, still holding her phone, with an expression on her face that was new and not entirely comfortable, but pointed in the direction of good. He told me about you, Cherish said. The you before, when you were young. Oh, Anne kept her voice light. He said you used to burn toast every single morning and be confused every single time. Cherish raised an eyebrow. Is that true? That is absolutely not. Anne stopped. That is slightly true. He said you cried at the end of every movie even when you pretended you didn't. I had allergies. Mom, Anne laughed. A real one, unguarded, the kind that comes from somewhere deep. Okay, fine. Yes. All true. Cherish looked at her mother for a moment with the quiet, slightly terrifying perceptiveness that she had always had, that had always made Anne feel both understood and exposed. Are you happy? Cherish asked. No. Are you okay? No. How are you doing? Cherish never asked the easy version of anything. Anne thought about Gilbert that morning asleep on his side, his hand resting open on the pillow the way it always did. She thought about the way Kole had looked when Cherish had shaken his hand in the cafe and said nice to meet you in that way that meant something different and more than the words. She thought about the terrible geography of all of it, the loss, the years, the misunderstanding that had cost so much, and she thought about what had come from it anyway. What had survived, what had been built in the white wreckage. Yes, she said, and she meant it in the full, complicated, honest weight of the word. I really am. Cherish considered this. Then she nodded satisfied and went back to her room. Anne stood in the kitchen for a while, listening to the apartment breathe around her. Then she started making dinner. The end.